Okay, I've got some audio. I am starting about 6 minutes early, and so I'm certain I'll have some of you come in at 11, or or maybe none of you. This is a virtual cast, and of course, if you come in or you join, after I've already started the meeting, that's okay because you can always go back on the front end and see what we got, what I covered. So that's not a big deal. It's the beauty of this thing is it's recorded and you can use it like a video. It's a really wet, nasty morning, and I bet you're happy that I'm not making you trudge across campus, although you probably may have had to for somebody else. But hopefully you're holed up at the dorm, you're warm, you're out of the elements, etc. But you're young, you can handle it if you're not. Well, this is, of course, the week of the 25th, the 27th, and the 29th. Okay, that's what my calendar tells me. And this is a virtual session for today, the 27th. Okay, and of course, Friday is a virtual day as well. I'm going to open up the module and just kind of get us acclimated to where we were. So it's module 5. And on Monday, we talked about leisure airlines. In that case, we went over it. And then we took a little bit of a look at county. We talked about it, which uses the data envelopment analysis. Okay, but we've got some other cases to talk about. So I would refer you back to county, and that's again where we use the data envelopment analysis, and of course, as usual. If you just try to work the case, I'm okay with it. All right, and then I'll go over it. Now we have a couple of other cases that are with this week, but before I get to those and talk about them, I want to make sure that you remember. You also have Chapter 7. You have an exam on Chapter 7 that's due Friday the 29th. The county, that one's due the 29th. Okay. Foster, now I don't have the pages indicated, but you do have to open it up and so you can see it. Here's Foster, okay? And I ask you to, as usual, do some work with some variables, and you'll need to see pages 256 to 262 as background on Foster, okay? And then it's over in pages 308 to 310. And what I ask you to do is compute the minimum cost given the following supply values, okay? And so those are the increments that you'll need to change them, and that's all. And then just upload the thing. Remember, I always give you credit for trying, all right? So and then I go over the correct, I go over what would be the so-called solution or the key. All right, so that we've got Foster, and you'll want to look at it. And then, of course, I'll go back down here to the module, okay? You've also got, in addition to Foster, you've got the Gorman case. And that's over on pages 276. Move my little thing. I don't think you see that, but here's page 276 to 278, and this is a network analysis problem where I ask you to increase the ARC1 distance and the ARC2 distance, and you're going to have to look at the text and then at the case file to see what I'm talking about. But this is a transportation problem. And now I think you're starting to understand why I say, optimization is as much about a thought pattern or a process or a way of thinking as it is in terms of just using a particular piece of software, because we've worked with such a variety of problems, and now we're working at some transportation problems. So you have the Gorman do again, and that's page 276 to 278. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back over there. All right, and I want to take just a few minutes before we kind of jump into those cases and just do a quick review of them. Okay, I talked about Chapter 7, and that's due. And I've got some resources here for you on network structure. Okay, and this is a slideshow, a PowerPoint uh, from Dr. Rodriguez at I believe he's at Hofstra, if I'm not mistaken, but he talks about transportation systems and networks. And it would really be worth your while to download the PowerPoint and take a look at it. There's a lot there, but it's a good introduction to that. And as I've said before, there are some of you who probably ought to be looking at a career in logistics. And if you want to have jobs, you want to have a type of job where you can have some growth, and they're always looking for good people who have they're comfortable working quantitatively, working with things like networks, working with transportation issues. There's a lot of opportunity there. And of course, the more online shopping that occurs means the greater, the more those types of firms will be open. So this is, it would be worth your while to check it out and learn a little bit about transportation systems and networks. Okay? So that's a resource. And again, I don't give you a quiz over those. I just believe that you're smart enough to say, I ought to take a look at this because I'm getting a bachelor's in business and I aspire to own my own company, or I aspire to be running somebody's company for them, okay? And then here we have logistics composite modeling, and have a resource on it and how that's accomplished. And I'll just take us out to that out there for a second. This is a PDF. This is from the Logistics Institute at Georgia Tech, where they talk about how they build logistic models. Okay, so I'm gonna close that off for you, and we'll go back. So that's a resource I think is certainly worth seeing. And again, one of the things about my courses is that you will find out a lot about yourself in terms of, are you really a self-starter? Can you be trusted? Okay. Do you have an internal clock that says it's time for me to work, or I need to get, and will you follow through with the job? Because, you know, I give you a lot of trust and a lot of latitude to do things. And fortunately, 95% of everybody is great with it. Okay, these are the kinds of things that employers like to know. And we send you out here highly trained people if you have your eyes and ears open. Now, I'm here today. It's 11 o'clock. It's a virtual session. You don't have to be here in class. It's a nasty day, and I understand that. And so I haven't had anybody join yet. It's just me. That's okay. Okay. I know you'll need to see this at a certain point. This is a link to the Humanitarian Logistics Association. And I hear students say so many times they really do want to do good. Okay. Well, there's a way to do that. And here's an organization you might say, hey, maybe I could work for them for a few years, get some experience, and go out into the world, because these folks are always needed, and particularly if they have any background or skills in working with logistics. And and I'm just going to say this: I know that there's a tendency to not listen to professors. There's a tendency to say, what do you know? Look, I'm out there and I do a lot of consulting. All of it now is for free. Okay, I probably turned down more consulting jobs than I could do in 10 years. Because people know I know things and I understand things, and I've got a lot of industry experience. And I can tell you that as I communicate with them with the kinds of problems that they're encountering and having, that what we're doing here is spot on in terms of preparing you for what's out there. And so, again, I want to encourage you, follow up on some of these things and take a look at them. Now I'm going to go back here, all right, and we've got then with the networks, and then here's some research studies. We've done data and development analysis now, and data now, and this is there's a text file out there. This is a text file, has some links to research on it, okay, on DEA. DEA is data envelopment analysis, and as we talked about on Monday, DEA involves this. I take a system and facilities or locations in a system, and then I build a composite model of them using some variables, decision variables, and some constraints. And then I test each one of them against the composite. And the whole idea is that I should have some kind of uniformity or standardization within my set of operations, franchises, or hospitals. And of course, I went into a long discussion and soliloquy about, do you have the right data? Are you looking at the context in the fullest way? And that's recorded for you to go back and study, okay? And lots of people use DEA in a lot of different ways, and it does have to come with a caveat. So we've done that. And then I also talked about Leisure Airlines. We even went out and looked at their, we looked at Leisure Airlines. We looked at their locations. We talked about the challenges that a firm like Leisure Airline faces in terms of having a high level of capital investment as a fixed capital. And we talked about that. So now I want to take a look at these cases that we still haven't. We talked about county, which is due. And let's look at foster, because we hadn't talked about foster. And so I'm going to go over here into the files, okay? And I'm going to look for the foster file and see if I have created a foster file. You're going to see, of course, you're going to see some things, all right, that, I haven't made public. I haven't made them, I haven't published them yet. There's a foster key. There's a Gorman key, and I'm going to come down here and get the files, okay? And we'll take a look at that for just, and we'll, here are the files, the skeleton files for the cases. I'm going to download it. Okay, and foster, it's over on page 308 to 310, which means it's in chapter 6. Okay, now I also mentioned that you also will want to see pages 256 to 262. All right. Hey, I had someone join me. And let me stop here for just a second and welcome you. And Alexander, glad to see you. Now, I started a bit early and you've come in a little bit late. However, that's okay, because, you can always backtrack on the video to get caught up, okay? And so you'll want to do that. So right now, we're getting ready to talk about the, we're going to talk about the foster case, and that's over in pages 308 to 310 in the textbook. And Nick, glad to see you here as well. And again, it's okay, because you can, if you come in a little late, I started a little bit early, and you can come back in and look at the video. The beauty of this, and the reason I love this system, is if you have to be late or you can't make it, it's there, it's recorded. You haven't missed anything. So you don't have to send me an email and go, Dr. Harmon, I missed it, or I'm sorry I'm late. It's okay. And even with the live class sessions, well, this is a live stream, I'm fine with it. That's why I like the technology, because, it doesn't marry you to have your tail end in a particular chair at a particular time of day. You can be there if you need to or want to. And glad to see you also, Amanda. Again, as I'm telling everybody, don't worry, you can always backtrack on the video. And I think as you get a comfort level with it and you say, okay, yeah, then you'll see the beauty of this. Now, and you'll want to go back and take a look afterwards. And what I'll do is I'll record I'll have to process it and then record it, and I'll upload it. at YouTube and then put the link in here, the usual bit. But one of the cases that we have due this week that we had not talked about Monday was the Foster case, okay? And that's over in pages 301 to 310 over there in the chapter 6. So I'm going to go down here, and I've got, as I mentioned, I have a chapter 6. So these are the files. And we'll look at the Excel files. We'll open it up, and we have the Foster case. So I'm going to open it up. Okay. And I'm going to close this for just a second, and I'm going to diminish this down. Now, and let me diminish this for a moment, and let's go back. Now, not only do you need to take a look at pages 308 to 310, okay, because this is a transportation problem, you also need to go back and look at pages 256 to 262, because they provide you some background, okay, in understanding a little bit of the issues involved with Foster. These are people who sell generators. And for example, over on page 261, it shows you they have this is a distribution case. In other words, a case involving transportation and networking. Okay? And so you'll want to look at pages 256 to 262 to kind of give you some background, and then go over and take a look at Foster for 308, 310. Now, the file that I've got there, and you'll want to download the Foster file, okay? And I'm just going to save this to my desktop right now. And then we'll just talk about what's going on here. Now, I have some resources there for you, everybody, to take a look at. It involves logistics and transportation. It involves some humanitarian organization, the Association of Humanitarian Logistics Association. And without good logistics, you just can't get anywhere. So here's Foster generators. Now, what I'm going to do is diminish this down, okay? We're working with a Foster case. And I'm going to go over here to the modules. Now find today's module, all right? And as usual, what I ask you to do is just simply try to do the case, upload your work, and then I'll talk about it usually the next week. And so you have the benefit of that. And again, I have some people who don't upload anything. Upload, try it, just try it. And so example, let's look at this for just a second. Yeah, this is due the 29th. Now here's what I'm asking you to do. Okay, and I tell you, as I've been saying here, here's the case 308 to 310, but you want to see 256 to 262 as background. Okay, now some of you missed this, but all I can say is this. I have a lot of students, especially management majors, who when I have them in policy, I ask them this question: have you got a job lined up? And I see the eyes begin to avert and not look me in the eye. I see people kind of slump in their seat. Let me tell you, we get you prepared, okay, to go out and work even as an entry-level management trainee and in companies that are involved in logistics. And I would say if you're not a computer science major, or if you're not an accounting major, okay, if you're wanting to get into something that's a growth opportunity, then I think logistics is one of those areas. And I can tell you they're going to do nothing but get bigger, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're going to need better and better qualified people because the problems they deal with are so much more complex. And, you know, the more stuff Amazon sells, the more they got to have people deliver it. Okay, it's got to get there some way, and you can be part of that process. So I encourage you to take a look at those types of companies. And there can be some great opportunities for you. And I've had 2 students now, both of whom went to work doing that type of work and are doing very well. So I can't encourage you enough to get interested in it and maybe take a look at it. I would also say this, if you're a management major and you're not a computer science major, you're not an accounting major, and you're kind of shuffling around going, what am I going to do? Let me say this to you. Corporate branding can be one of the most important things that ever happens to you. Now, I know I'm just an old geezer, your old professor. What do I know? I've lived a little, I've done a little, I've been around, I've traveled some pathways. So please listen and take my advice to heart. Having branding on your resume is exceptionally important. And I say to students, I think one of the great places to really get that and to get your feet going in a career is over at Enterprise Rentals. Enterprise hires more college graduates than anybody. That's the truth. And if you're willing to go to work for them, maybe move somewhere, work retail hours, deal with the public, and if you're good, as one of my current students, they'll probably promote you pretty fast. And if anything, if you say, well, that's not what I really want to do, but because Enterprise has such good standing and it's a Fortune 100 company or Fortune 500 company at least, if you say, well, I want to look for a job, someone's going to see that on your resume and they're going to go, wow, we need you. Let me tell you, and I'm speaking from experience. Long ago, when I was in graduate school and working on my doctorate, just as I finished it, one of the people on my committee called me. I was already working up in Missouri teaching, and he said, I've got an opportunity for you. And I said, what's that? He said, would you like to do a summer postdoctoral study at MIT? And I said, you've got to be kidding me. And he said, no, he knew people, and he said, these are seminars. And he said, your dissertation and the work you've done is pretty close to what they're doing, and you should go. So I went up there. Okay, now listen, I was the dumbest person in the room, but I heard some seminars that blew me away because they were so accurate in terms of what they thought the future of things would be. And I have always had people curious about what was the experience like up at Cambridge, living in there in the quads, etc. But what I did understand that what he did, he was the former chairman of the management program at University of Oklahoma. What he did for me was he gave me branding. And I don't know how many times I've had people ask me about it, and when I've applied for jobs, that's been something that hit their radar. So you can have that. Now, my wife is a good example of that. She has a degree in art from Southwest Missouri University, okay? A degree in art. She took a couple of office administration courses, got a job at FedEx, worked there, and we've moved twice since we've been married, and each time she has people calling her, offering her a job because they know FedEx is a great company, and that it's branding. So let me encourage you. Now, I stopped and did that soliloquy, and I understand, okay? And you probably are sitting there with your eyes rolling in the back of your head. Well, maybe I'm giving you some good advice. I can tell you the two students who I have sent on to look for logistics jobs, send me emails all the time. Hey, I got a promotion, this, that, and those. And I have one particular who I sent off to Enterprise. He got a job with them. He's moving up the chain and says it's the best thing. And he has a lot of those offers. Being young people, and if you're not married, you're not attached, you have an opportunity with your education to travel, to see the world. And corporate America loves you because you're not going to say, well, I don't want to move my family. They might say, well, we need to move you here, move you there, and you'll have a chance to see in some places that you never would have gotten to, okay? And, look, I grew up in Oklahoma City. I'm amazed at the kinds of things that I got to do, but I got to do them because I had an education and I had some mentors along the way and some people who gave me some good advice. So that being said, I hope you'll look some more at those. And if you say, I really have a heart for people, well, you know, today, the men and women who are out there working those disaster areas are people that love people. You have to. I've worked the one here in Moore. I worked a couple of floods and in some other states. And all I can tell you is, hey, you know, it really will test to see how well you love it. Well, I asked us to compute some things, all right, given the minimum cost. So I'm going to copy this right here, okay? And then I'm going to open, and thank you for listening to my soliloquy. If I didn't care about all of you, I wouldn't give you any advice. I'd just walk in, cough up the material, and walk out. But I care about you. You're good young people. You're good people, and I want to see you be successful. And so if I can offer you some advice, I'm going to do it. So I want to insert here, let's see, I want to insert a text box. So I'm going to take my text box here. So let's click insert. And we'll just do this. And I'll go ahead and scroll this out so we can see it. Okay? And I don't like how that ended up, so I'm going to redo this. I'm going to click insert text box. And that's not Santa Claus, that's my dog. She's about 9 years old. She's a rescue. She's part Schnauzer, part Poodle. And, you know, what can I say? She has a higher vertical leap than I do. What can I say? Maybe I ought to send her to OU and let her play. Probably out-leap in. She's probably play defensive back very well. Anyway, enough of that frivolity. Foster generators, page 308 to 310. They sell generators. Now, there on page 309, they show you the Excel solution. This is a minimization problem, okay? And they have customers in different zones. That's over on page 309, table 612. And they have customers and they have different distribution centers. And so it's a transportation problem. So let's look at the optimization issue first of all. Okay, and there's the sum product. And so I'm going to click data, all right, and I'm going to click solver. And here we'll see we're minimizing cell C13. We've got the changing variables, and let's look at those. The changing variables are B17 through E19. This quadrant right here, this array, excuse me. Now, we have these constraints, okay, in terms of what we can send, okay, how far we can send it, what we, in terms, and what we've got in terms of supplies. You can see it here. This is a classic transportation, what we call northwest corner supply and demand distribution issue, which is a mouthful of saying, I got these places that want this much stuff. I've got these places that have this much stuff. Here's what it costs me to move this stuff or the distance. What do I do? Well, luckily we have a model. And so we have, first of all, we have these constraints and we have the decision variables right here. Okay. And then we have the constraints. Here we have the first set of constraints, the total amount, okay, in terms of demand. And then we have the second set of constraints in terms of supply, okay? And that's cell CE, pardon me. We're looking at F17, the right hand and the left hand, I'm sorry. So we've got the constraints and we've got the left hand side, the right hand side, okay? Now, we're assuming, and this is why it's a simplex, we're assuming that that it fits an XY pattern. Okay, so that's why we're using simplex LP. Again, we're assuming that there is a linear relationship, and we're going to have some cases where it's nonlinear. That we'll even have some where it's evolutionary. Most of these will be simplex because that's just the nature of the variables that we tend to work with. All right, now we've got the changing these cells. All right, so I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this eye, and well, we can just run the thing. Now, let's do this. I'm going to close this for just a second because we have a sensitivity report, and so we had the solver solution, which is here. We had the sensitivity report, and let's talk about this for just a minute. The sensitivity report in Excel shows you, for example, on Cleveland, Boston, okay, what's the allowable increase, what's the allowable decrease, okay? So we're looking at what are the parameters I have that I can work with, and we can see in some of them we can increase it greatly, but we can't do much in terms of a decrease. Others are just the opposite. Networks tend to look like this. Well, we can't do much. We don't have much flex here, but we have a considerable flex in terms of decreasing. And then if you look, you see just the opposite almost as we look at this next block in terms of, and you'll see these patterns, okay? And this starts to tell you, yeah, I'm dealing with a northwest corner problem. And this is just a term that people use when they talk about, we're trying to work through this, and there's an old technique that's just an iterative kind of technique called the northwest corner method. And I'm not going to go into it, but it's just one of those terms. Now, if you come down here and look, you're going to see in the constraints that the constraints reflect in terms of a pattern, excuse me, the adjustable cells. So where can we change things? What are the constraints we're working with? And here they are. And of course, with scientific notation, you can tell how small or how big these are. Okay, so let's go back now to the solution. And we've run a sensitivity analysis. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, and I can't believe it would be this hard, would be to say, okay, compute the minimum cost given the following supply values. Cleveland plus 8.6%, Bedford plus 9.4%, and York plus 4.9%. So I just want you to change those supply values, then run it and see what you get. Okay? You say, okay, why would I do this? Well, this is that process. The optimizer, or thinking along those lines, says, okay, I have a solution, but this solution is probably just one among many. And we've talked about that before. The decision making is a continuous kind of thing, like a bell curve, as opposed to black and white. So I'm always wanting to find out what's the most likely thing to happen. Then what will it look like if it's really bad or really good? Okay, and again, this is just this whole process of doing something. So we use the solver as a tool for decision making. So that's why I say, okay, we'll go in here and we're going to change, and we can assume maybe we have some changes here in terms of the supply values. And then what does it look like? And I ask you just to plug those in and run it, okay, and upload it. That's all. That's all you got to do for Foster. So I'm going to close that off, okay? That's the Foster, and we're done with that. And now, let's go back over here, and we're going to talk about the next case that we had not discussed yet, and that's going to be the Gorman case. Gorman is over on page 276 to 278. And I hope as we work through these, and you say, you start to sound like a broken record. Remember back in chapter 1 where we saw the steps for decision making, and we saw the steps for problem solving, okay? That is the heart of this whole course. The software is just a tool, okay? Think of it like, this is not that silly an analogy, but think about it like I'm an artist, and I have a canvas, and I have certain types of material that I work with to convey certain things, or I work. Say my wife. Now my wife has an art degree. She does incredibly beautiful prints using watercolors. I've got a painting in my house that people, when they see it, they go, "I'll buy this from you." And my wife goes, "No, you won't." But again, it's a tool to help us take a look at some things. So let's take a look at Gorman, and this is a shortest route problem. Now, if you take a look at page 276 and 277, okay, figure 612 and figure 613, you say, why do you always refer back to the book? Well, I make you buy it, so I think we ought to use it. Not a bad idea. I'm kind of a simpleton, okay, if you haven't picked up on that already. And you'll notice here, this is what we call a transshipment problem, and we've got we're trying to find the shortest route between the nodes in a network. This is a network problem, okay? And as you can see there, they show you the distance in miles, okay? And they give you they give you arcs and nodes, okay? The nodes are the circle things. The arc are the lines, and then that's the road distance in miles. Then they show you the transshipment nodes up on page 277, and you start to see transshipment, meaning I send stuff from 5 to 6. Okay, I send stuff from 4 to 6. I send stuff from 2 to 6. And you say, wow, that's kind of interesting. If you've taken the data analysis, data administration course with me, and you've seen me talk about the star schema in a database and tell you that it shows you the flow, you're looking at the same kind of thing here. Data, things, money tend to flow together. Now, if you look here, it's transshipment also because you can send stuff between 4 and 5, 4 and 2, 2 and 3, 5 and 3, 1 and 2, and 1 and 3. You have at the ends of those nodes, on the left-hand side, the origin node, and at the destination node, you've got a feeder out. Origin node 1 has stuff branching out, or destination node 6 has stuff incoming. And so what we're trying to do is find the shortest route. Now, let's go into the files. Okay, I'm going to go back over there, and we'll take a look. In fact, well, I don't even need to do that. Let me just, what an idiot I am this morning. Pardon me. Okay, I'm going to go up here to the Excel files, and there's Gorman. I'm going to open it back up, or open it up, excuse me. And I'll close that. And there are the starting nodes, the ending nodes, and the distance between them. Okay. And this also uses what we call a bimodal approach, and that is go, no go. And that's why you see the decision variable of a 0 or a 1. And every time you see a 1, it's a yes. Every time you see a 0, so here we're operating on what we, in distribution or these types of problems, transshipment problems, distribution problems. These are binary, okay? They're binary, and yes or no, go, no go. So let's diminish this down for a minute. And I'll diminish this down. Let's go back over to the modules area, okay? And let's find out what I asked it to do with this Joule. And let's see, here we go. upload Gorman here, page 278. Okay, we'll open this up. And here's what I ask you to do to compute the total distance given. Make sure I've got everything there. We'll copy that. And then I come over to Gorman. And I'm going to insert a text box. Boom. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to compute the total distance given. An 11.1% increase in the arc 1 distance. Okay? Arc 1 distance. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask you to do a 2.8% decrease in the arc 5 distance. So I'm talking about the distances associated with arc 1, okay, and arc 5. Here are the arcs. The arcs, remember, are those lines between those nodes, okay? And I'm just asking, and so we have an increase in arc 1 distance. We have a decrease in arc 5 distance. So what has this got to do with anything relevant to the real world? Well, really nothing. No, I'm kidding you. Just kidding. Let me give you kind of a real world scenario where this type of problem arises for people who do transshipment. This might be a situation, let's say, we have to increase the distance in arc 1 because the state of Oklahoma decided suddenly it's going to squeeze the lanes down to 1 lane from a 4-lane, or a bridge washes out, or whatever. So we gotta work around it, okay? And so that we have to increase the distance. The other might be that a new road, say a tollway has been created, or a new road's completed, or road work was completed, and so we can decrease the distance, okay? Maybe within those cities they had to change locations. Who knows, okay? But that, regardless, these are typical of the kinds of things that happen because it's not static, and this can change almost every day. In fact, people that do transportation, especially short line people who do transportation, the UPS and FedEx people who deliver right to your house or right to a business, they have a transshipment problem they work through, okay? If you order something, it gets flown from here to there, and then boom, and this is what we call the last mile problem that you have. It's easy to get a bunch of stuff into a hub and then distribute it out. It's a harder thing once you're there at the various nodes to try to work that route out. And so this is a very typical transshipment problem where you have changes in one arc, changes in another, and what does it look like, okay? And that's really what I'm going to ask you to do. And then, of course, there's a sensitivity report with this solution. Let's look at it for a moment. Here's the total distance, and we'll go back here and let's click on data. Okay, we'll look at Solver. And I hope you appreciate the fact that Solver is an incredibly versatile tool when I have complex things like this to work through. When I got my master's in operations management, let me tell you, a lot of these tools weren't here. You did a bunch of stuff by hand, or you wrote programming. And so the day I saw Solver was the day I had an epiphany, and I said, "Thank you, Lord, for this piece of this piece of software embedded in Excel. It's a fabulous tool." And the thing is this, it lets you focus on the thought process, okay? Am I minimizing, maximizing, or trying to hit a particular value? What are my constraints? What type of data am I working with? Those are the 3 key questions that we try to answer. And so that's pretty much it. So I can click to solve it, then I can go ahead and add the sensitivity report. And we've talked about that, interpreting it, okay? Again, you'll see those very familiar patterns. So Gorman and that one, and I'll just go ahead and say that. Save that down here to my desktop, I guess. I'll call it a copy of Gorman. And so that's pretty much it. Now, in addition to the Gorman, finally, and I'll take us down here, you have an exam over Chapter 7. Again, I have some resources for you that I'd like you to take a look at. And then next week, we'll look. Next week, we're going to move into some different material in the Data Smart textbook. Okay. And we'll look at cluster analysis. Then we're going to work with PAR nonlinear. And then what I'll do is I'll post the keys for Gorman. But again, I want you to try them. And so next week it'll start to get interesting because we're going to look at, I have modules 6 and 7 together there, compressed in that one little module, and we're going to start moving and working with this Data Smart text. That's the green one with the guy who's upside down. He's the CIO of no, he has the title's upside down. He's upright. Young guy, smart aleck, but smart, scary smart. And we're going to work with some big data problems using some functions in Excel that mimic database functions, and then also some optimization work. And so I think you're going to find some interesting cases. So we'll be moving on into that text, the Data Smart text. Well, folks, that's pretty much it. I've gone, I think, about 50 minutes or so. And again, I want to thank everybody who showed up and who stayed here to listen to me the whole thing. You suffered. Who are you? Okay, Alexander, God bless you. You deserve a medal for staying with me the whole time. Well, I'm going to save this and then post it over in the announcements. And I look forward to seeing everybody's work, and we'll go from there. So thank you so much. And I'll stop the share and then stop the recording, and we're done.